everyone, Kate here, and this week I'll be experimenting with two different 1920s lipstick recipes. Now the two formulations that I'm going to be making this week both come from Practical Use of Raw Materials in the Beauty Parlor, which was published in 1924. While they are both called lipsticks, I did wonder if perhaps they might be more like a tinted lip balm, but they did actually work out to be quite pigmented. Speaking of pigments, I did have to make a couple changes to the original formulation in this regard, as the original pigments just aren't available anymore, at least not to the home crafter. I opted to use a makeup grade red iron oxide, actually two slightly different makeup grade red iron oxides, adding about a quarter teaspoon to each. Now you can add more or less depending on your preferences and your pigment of choice. Other pigments that you might want to experiment with could include something like carmine, alkanet, a lake dye if you don't mind something more synthetic, or any number of botanical pigments. Now I haven't tried any of these myself in this particular lipstick formulation, so how much you need to add and what the results are going to be like, I can make no guarantees on that. You'll have to experiment on your own, and if you do, please let me know down in the comments. I would love to know how other pigments perform in this recipe, so please let me know if you decide to have a little experiment. The only other major change that I made to the original recipe, other than I swapped the jojoba oil in for the spermaceti because we don't use whale-based products anymore, but I also ended up omitting the citrus oils that were included in the first lipstick base. They were not included in the second, but they were included in the original first lipstick base. I'm pretty sure it was mostly just in there for scent, and I chose to leave it out because citrus oils can cause photosensitivity, and nobody wants a sunburn on their lips, like, ow. Well, without any further ado, let's make some lipstick. For this recipe, you will need 1.5 grams of beeswax, 0.75 grams of jojoba oil, 2.7 grams of olive oil, a pigment of your choosing. I'm using a quarter teaspoon of a red iron oxide, and while it's not in the original recipe, adding a drop of vitamin E oil to your formula will keep it fresh longer. If you're making the second base, you will need 2 grams of beeswax, 3 grams of sweet almond oil, your pigment of choice. Again, I'm using a quarter teaspoon of a red iron oxide, although a slightly different shade for this one. And as before, you may wish to add in the vitamin E oil. The procedure for making either lipstick is the same. You just melt the oils and waxes together and then quickly stir in your pigment and vitamin E oil if using. For melting, you can opt for either a double boiler or use a microwave. I tried using a hot water bath as I have had some success with this for making lipsticks in the past, but I ended up microwaving mine as it wasn't melting quickly enough. I then used the hot water bath just to keep the lipsticks warm enough to work with. Once everything is melted, add in your pigments and your vitamin E oil if using. Don't worry if the base starts to firm up a bit, as long as they are still relatively soft and smushable, it should be fine. Speaking of which, when it comes to smushing it together, I prefer using a small spatula rather than a spoon, as I find this gives the most evenly blended results. The final step is to scoop into a tube or a tin and let set overnight. Be sure to leave a bit of extra time afterwards for cleanup and have plenty of paper towels or rags on hand. I find I can never make lipstick without making an absolute mess. So I've done a few wear tests, and these lipsticks perform pretty well for what they are, which is a creamy, natural lipstick. Are they the perfect lipstick formulation? No, they're not. They'll last for a few hours on the lips, but they certainly don't have the longevity of, say, something like a modern liquid lipstick, or even a more modern creamy lipstick formulation like the one in the book Make It Up. That's actually my lipstick base of choice. To get the best out of these lipsticks, I suggest blotting when you're applying and having a cute compact mirror on hand for when touch-ups are necessary. In terms of the differences between the two formulas, there probably is one, but it's pretty subtle. I didn't notice a major difference between the two. I think I probably like the almond oil one a little better. It does have more wax in it, so it might perhaps last a little bit longer, but my wear tests between the two were pretty comparable. They're so easy to make. If you want to try them out, I suggest just making both and seeing which one works best for you. Well, that's it for this week. As always, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye! This video was made possible through the generous support of my Patreons. Thank you.